We had the opportunity to do Abe Berkowitz. Abe Berkowitz, Jew, lawyer, and an activist. And that's a photo I got from an article written by Gail Short. So, Abe Berkowitz was a strong Jewish man who fought for equality during the Civil Rights Movement. Berkowitz never shied away from opposition from stronger men such as Bull Connor. Abe is a well-known figure in Birmingham's civil rights story, and his side is a very important part of it. Um, Abe Berkowitz is remembered as one of Birmingham's earliest progressive activists, promoting both economic expansion and social justice throughout his entire career. We can go to the next slide. So this is our main thesis statement that we came up with. So it says Abe Berkowitz, a Jewish leader who made a significant impact in Birmingham's civil rights movement. Our presentation aims to explore the role of Abe Berkowitz in the civil rights movement in Birmingham, shedding light on his contributions to the cause and the impact he made as a Jewish leader. Next slide, please. So our next one is Abe Berkowitz, family man and inspiration. And so this photo I got from Deborah Darvik on her own website. So I had the wonderful and profound opportunity to get a deeper view into the life and legacy of Abe Berkowitz with his granddaughter, Deborah Darvik. She was darling. And Abe and Deborah's dynamic and her growing up with a famous grandfather was very inspiring, but she knew him growing up as just her grandfather. She had fond memories spending summers at Panama City Beach and having him sing songs to her, just like any normal grandfather to a granddaughter. Abe also had a very good relationship with JFK, who was the president during this time. And at the age of 6 years old, Deborah went with her grandfather to a meeting that he had at DC at the White House with John Kennedy. And she actually befriended his daughter, Caroline Kennedy. And so they went and they met her little horse named Macaroni. At the age of 13, they had both spent the summer at Cape Cod, and Abe called the Kennedy compound to have them come and join them up, but the Kennedys weren't able to make it at that time. Next slide, please. So this is just drawing more into her dynamic with her grandfather. So in the photo, Deborah is actually the little girl in the little dress, and Abe is the guy in the middle. So this is also from her website. So Deborah talked to me about Abe's upbringing and how his mother passed away when he was just 6 years old. He grew up in Jackson, Mississippi on a farm and had to keep the cows out of the bitterwood so that way they wouldn't eat it and get sick. Uh, Abe actually never learned how to drive, and someone actually wanted to pay him with a Cadillac car, and he refused it because he couldn't drive it. And I asked him why he never left Birmingham. And she said that he never left Birmingham because of the close relationships he had built while living there, and because his friends and family were there and he didn't want to leave them. She also told me that Abe loved being the center of attention and was an excellent storyteller to her. Next slide, please. So, a Jewish lawyer in Birmingham, Alabama. So, Abe Berkowitz was the first lawyer to become a lawyer in Alabama and attended the University of Alabama and graduated at 21, the first Jewish lawyer, my bad. And Deborah tried to find as much about her grandfather as she could when she got older. So she went to the library and read about all of his hate letters that he had gotten and received over the years, and found out that by some people, he was called by the name of Berkowitz. Excuse my language, but that's what she said and what they wrote. So she said that he was courageous and a rabble rouser, and she felt like it was a legacy that she had to maintain. And there's another part of this as well. So I talk about in the book, The Most Segregated City in America by Charles E. Connerly. So Connerly, he brings up that Abe Berkowitz more as the attorney he was during this time. Um, and another attorney, David Vann, he called on Berkowitz to help him with the Mayor Council Act. Berkowitz had made numerous speeches wanting to switch to a mayor council form of government, and Berkowitz's expertise as a lawyer and his fighting spirit helped Vann create a meeting that included the Labor Board, the Birmingham Chamber of Commerce, the PTA Council, as well as many other organizations to come together to discuss this act. I think that Connerly's approach to Berkowitz takes on a different perspective of his occupation and how he helped in more ways than one. Next slide, please. And so this is just a continuation of him being such a profound lawyer in Birmingham. Another resource I used was the book Behind the Magic Curtain, Secret Spies and Unsung White Allies of Birmingham Civil Rights Days by T.K. Thorne. So Thorne explains how Berkowitz gained a reputation for speaking up in favor of civil rights and donating money for jail bonds for civil rights activists. He also represented Black clients against the city and the state and led an effort to get Black attorneys admitted to the Birmingham Bar Association. And Berkowitz was always one to speak his mind and never back down. And that's a big reason why I really enjoyed getting to talk with Miss Darvik and just getting her interpretation of her growing up with such a profound man as her grandfather. And so next we will throw it over to Erik to continue.
Okay, so first off, I want to say, um, Deborah Deborah was responsible for giving us and just the community in Birmingham a lot of information about her grandfather and about what her grandfather did. And as I'll say here, he did a lot. So, guidance through faith. So, first off, Abe Berkowitz looked towards his faith for guidance. He full-heartedly and faithfully followed his faith in Judaism. His faith guided his daily decisions as a husband, father, mentor, and activist. So Abe Berkowitz was such a faithful man, um, and everything he did was based off of his faith. His political beliefs and his moral beliefs were based off of his faith as a Jewish man. He was also a Zionist, and a Zionist is a person who believes in fighting for the protection and building of Israel. And we can see that relate to today's world. And like the civil rights movement, he was an activist and an advocate for this movement. Next slide. Okay, so Abe, Abe Berkowitz was different than many of the other people that we see during this time. So, how did Abe Berkowitz differ from other civil rights activists? During the civil rights era, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X are two activists who went about the movement differently from Abe Berkowitz. He believed in handling civil rights issues through business and law. And Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X had less faith in the court system and believed to get a response from the government, they must publicly protest. And I'll say this much. So many of the people who was not in favor of Berkowitz or said that he wasn't doing enough didn't realize how much he was actually doing behind the scenes to protest and to get laws in place to where it actually changed. So next slide. Okay, so here we'll start off with some of his courageous actions. Some of his earliest actions is here. So Berkowitz has seen discrimination throughout the South towards minorities of all kinds. As a Jewish lawyer, he felt obligated to help the community around him and fight against the inequality around him. In the late 1930s, he began fighting against discrimination by filing court proceedings against the Ku Klux Klan. What sparked his actions against the Klan was an event where the Klan drove Girl Scouts out of town because they tried teaching African American girls how to be Girl Scouts. Berkowitz's action resulted in more public support coming out to condemn the Klan and helped to put the Klan away. So we'll go on later in time and fighting against Bull Connor. So Berkowitz actively only grew from then. He began to publicly speak out against injustice. Abe Berkowitz began to fight against the man who was responsible for having prejudiced beliefs and acting on them as Birmingham City's commissioner, Bull Connor. David Vann even asked for Abe Berkowitz to help petition for Bull Connor out of office. Berkowitz called prominent businessmen around Birmingham to help this endeavor. And on May 1963, during a protest, Bull Connor sprayed onlookers down with fire hoses and used dogs on them. 20 days later, he was ordered out of the office by Supreme Court. So what was happening was Birmingham was switching from a commissioner style government over the police force to a mayor and governor ownership of the police force. And ultimately, he overstayed his time as commissioner. And it took many petitions to petition him out of office. And then finally, they got a response from the Supreme Court to order them to vacate their offices. Next slide. So, caught in the crossfire, he has given many speeches during and after the Civil Rights Movement, encouraging others to stand up for their beliefs and fight discrimination. He even went to lengths to write influential people and businessmen. For example, he wrote several letters to the editor of Birmingham News and other news outlets. He received backlash from his own community during this time because they believed he was being too active or not active enough. Some Jewish people during this time believed Abe Berkowitz was drawing too much attention to the community, which would result in bombings or attacks against the community. Other people said that he was not being vocal enough and he needed to publicly protest to actively actually change anything. But we know he did so much, not only with law, but he used his power as a businessman too, to get other businesses involved in changing things in the community, allowing or desegregating stores and allowing for people of all minorities to shop together and other things like that. Next slide. So this it's Malachi's turn, and he'll cover this.
Forgot I was muted. Hold on. Okay, so what effect did Abe Berkowitz have on Birmingham today? Now, I decided to do this part for two reasons. One was because I wanted to know what all that suing the Ku Klux Klan did and how it affected the world, not the world, but Birmingham. And two, I thought it was going to be easy. I was so wrong. Anyway, in conclusion, Abe Berkowitz was not only a Jewish leader who made important differences in the civil rights movement, but he also made significant contributions to Birmingham civil rights movement and made a significant impact by pursuing a career as a lawyer in 1928. As a prominent lawyer, Abe represented African American defendants, attacked the Ku Klux Klan, and advocated for change in Birmingham City Commission, defending justice despite risking his life and the Jewish community. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, in addition, Abe Berkowitz was a member of C for Progress. He played an important role in Birmingham's government changing, which eventually led to Bull Connor's removal. Okay. How the community faced economic and physical threats, highlighting the risk of speaking out. In 1963, Berkowitz met with 19 Northern rabbis to prevent their support of protests, fearing their presence and could exacerbate anti-Semitic tensions and hindered negotiations. He got nominated for an award too. So yeah, he got nominated for an award, and it was amazing. In addition, representing Black clients against the city of Birmingham and Alabama State, Abe led an effort to get Black attorneys admitted to the Birmingham Bar Association. And because of that, he won an award for it. And he's in the Hall of Fame class of 2015. Fun fact. And it took he was like in it for like 30 years, I think it was. And it was just a very long time. He helped out a lot of attorneys for a very long time. I said that already. Abe Berkowitz has impacted the Jewish community and the city of Birmingham as a whole. His impact has resulted in changing of unjust laws and has aided in the movement of equality for all. We see his legacy in others who have spoken out and fought the court system for their rights and the rights of other people. Berkowitz have proven we can all do something to help others in the face of danger. Next slide.
Okay, guys, great job. We see these are your works cited. Does anybody have a question for this group in particular?
I do.
Okay.
On one of the early slides, it mentions Zionism. I've seen that word used a lot, but don't really know much about it. Does your group have anything to help explain it?
Yeah. So Zionism, especially in the 60s and 50s, when we see him, he speaks out for it. What it all means is that he is for the building and protection of Israel and the furtherment of his Jewish faith, because it is believed to be the Holy Land. But yeah, I mean, he was not only was he a civil rights activist in the sense of the movement that happened here in the South and everything over here, but he also wrote articles and many other things about Zionism and about not only, discrimination among people in America, but other people in other countries who did acts against his Jewish faith.
Others that want to address that question very quickly?
I thought I was already unmuted, but I was. With talking with Deborah, I asked her what was one of his most passionate projects other than the civil rights movement, and it was the Zionist movement. He took a lot of time and practicing in his faith and knowing what he wanted and just moving forward with the Zionist movement. That was something that he was passionate till the day he died.